and Lance came in there, albeit without that over the top franchise personality or that Candido delivery or whatever. And he won them over hold to hold to hold.
Rob Van Dam versus Lance Storm. Now, there's a backstory with Rob Van Dam here. We'll get to that in a minute. But as far as the match goes with Lance and Rob, what do you want to say about that?
Lance, huge respect for Lance, and I'll tell you why. Lance, as you know, when you watch him, he is pretty vanilla, right, in character. There's not a whole lot going on there in character.
What about that hairstyle he had going? That rat tail. Yeah. Wow.
Hey, there's also every one of us has some hair moments in our past that we'd rather not.
No, but that's like Hall of Shame hairstyle. He dyed it as well.
Yeah. Hey, but he came in there. I've always said I am so thankful I was in the ground floor of ECW, because that would have been a really tough crowd to win over once they had gotten chugging. And Lance came in there, albeit without that over the top franchise personality or that Candido delivery or whatever. And he won them over hold to hold to hold. Not easy thing to do. In this particular match, and like you said, we'll talk about the Rob thing whenever you want to, but a little bit of a story there that did play into it, but wasn't planned to be played into it. Rob was renowned in the ECW arena by then, right? The fans had known him and really had bought into him. And Lance was still relatively new at this point coming in. So he hadn't had that huge, monumental, epic match yet in ECW. But you could, watch them delivering each other and working with each other. There's not a time you get a feel that they're dancing, but you get a feel that they're competing. And the one thing, and we'll elaborate a little bit more on this in a second. When Lance picks the chair up and uses the chair and he works the shot on Lance, and you can hear the just from the audience. And, when he went back to it later, I said, I'm watching, but please don't lay this one in, it's laid in, and he didn't again and went with it. But again, I know what he's doing. He's in ECW. He's heard all these stories. You don't want to come in there and just start throwing taters around, right? And then think, oh, the guy's stiff or whatever. You could see like these two parallel universes in professional wrestling. The mainstream parallel and then this ECW subworld that somehow was a hair different than everything else. And he's going in there and doing that. But for his character, the way that he was portraying his character, it somehow worked. Like it somehow made sense that his character would do that. And it would elicit the response that it did.
But do you think it was on purpose though? Because when I was watching it, I was thinking he was doing it very light on purpose. So he just gives a couple of love taps with the chair, so Rob doesn't sell it and then does the Van Daminator back. Maybe Lance Storm will tell me otherwise, or you'll tell me otherwise. But no, was that actually Lance Storm just not laying it in because for whatever reason, he just didn't lay it in?
I've never spoken to him about it. To me, it looks like he's using the chair, but afraid to lay it in because, again, where he comes from in the work, you work this stuff. You don't really lay it in. And of course, ECW. But the problem with that was, again, given the different degrees of this, there came a point in ECW where if you put your hands up even to half protect yourself, the crowd would boo you out of the building. With what we know about CTE and stuff now, and I not that I knew about CTE then, but I was aware that that's my brain. I sort of use it once in a while, and it's fairly important. I knew that couldn't be good taking those kind of chair shots, and so there was this point where it got to like in ECW, you could swing unless it was Balls Mahoney swinging that chair. You were getting booed out of the building if you in any way protected yourself. And the consequences that would have down the road. So my take on it is, and again, I'll have to ask him the next time I see him, was he intentionally doing it or not? It looked to me like he was using the chair, but not realizing how to lay it in. But again, with his character, the way it was, and maybe that's Lance's brilliance. Maybe he did plan it that way and was doing it that way to play into it, but it whatever it was, it worked.